Okay. Sorry about that opening, guys. For some reason, it started and then stopped. So I want to welcome everybody here to the Big 12 Mafia Holy Rivals Show. I'm your co-host, Nathan Bomber Brown. With me tonight are my two key contributors. That would be Immaculate and Moen, and also the Wild Ute, who's my co-partner on this show. We want to welcome everybody here on, what is it, a Tuesday night. Boy, it feels already after it seems like the championship games were like 3 weeks ago. So much has happened in the last 2 days. So we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about Florida State. Should they or should they not be in the playoff? We're going to talk about the bowl games and who maybe or should Oregon be playing. Who is it now? They're playing
Liberty.
Is that a valid game? And
yes.
Do these bowl games matter anymore? Outside of money, they're just money grabs as far as I'm concerned. We'll talk about this article out about the president of the NCAA saying maybe this is the proposal that we should do and we should split. And we're going in different directions for revenue and who can afford to actually be a top tier university in today's college football and college athletics. We're going to get to all those things. Plus, we're going to talk about how we did over the weekend with our picks. So before we get into that, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. You tell us how your weekend went and kind of catch us up to where you are today.
Yeah, I had a great weekend. What good games, over the weekend here. FSU pulls it out here. Georgia goes down. All this playoff madness. I think the game of the week still to me was that Oregon-Washington game. I thought it was phenomenal. It was a fun watch and everything. Michigan took care of business, and the whole Michigan cheating stuff's been wiped under the rug forever. So that's interesting to see, right? There's a lot of controversy going on right now. Everyone has their own opinions, and mine's right and yours is all wrong. That's what I think.
I love it. That's great.
We just had that conversation.
We did, and we'll probably have it more too. Tell us what you're thinking, Moen.
I'm thinking that the shelves behind Wildew are crooked, or there's
dude, come on, man. Dude, I hung this last night, man. Look at that.
What is going on here?
My
dude,
OCD is
that.
way off of that. But,
gee, man.
Now I can't unsee it.
The NCAA subdivision, new division, that's certainly the news of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll be talking about that. Immaculate, why don't you catch everybody up on how your weekend went and kind of what your thing's going on today?
Oh, well, I thought it was a great weekend of games, and just kind of interesting to see Michigan, Iowa got over 10 million views on that one. Moen had a kind of a good idea on that it was probably due to the gambling angle. But Phil Parker, as I said, was pretty much the only choice. So I'm not even going to take credit for saying it. He was the only choice. Got the Broyles Award for Coordinator of the Year. So congratulations, Phil Parker, defensive coordinator at Iowa, for single-handedly carrying that team. And then the Florida State news. Like, I know we just got this news they were talking about with the NCAA president and what he said, but I'm still kind of stuck on Florida State. I think that was I got my opinions on that. I don't know how much of that you want, but
give it to me right now.
Well, I think that the committee, the people who are on the ranking committee, did their job. Okay. I think that is what they were tasked with doing. And I whole freaking heartedly disagree with what the CFP says should be made. To me, this is the NIT. This is the NIT. This is the National Invitational Tournament. We're not trying to find, an actual playoff champion. We're just inviting the teams that we think will get the best views and the best matchups, which Alabama is going to provide a better matchup than Florida State. They just are. Like, we can all sit here and say it's not true, but it is. And to me, it doesn't matter. To me, Florida State should be there. We should be talking about who deserves to get there, not just who's the best team. To me, that's effing trash. One, you're in the tournament with the team that's already beat you this year. Shouldn't be there. Two, you beat the number one team and people are talking about, well, they should still be in there. No, if anything, neither of them should be there because of that. You almost kind of prove that you're not as good as you say you are. So I'm not real happy with it. I think that Florida State, there's more than just a quarterback there. There's a whole team. And they played their asses off to cover for not having that guy. And they got, screwed because one player is not going to be there. I thought some good points were made in terms of like Cardale Jones in Ohio State and how his first game was in the conference championship game. Now, the Florida State quarterbacks may not be playing as well as him, but it was literally his first game. I mean, I think Florida State as a team has earned the right to be there and should be given that honor. And I think Alabama, your own athletic department, signed that game with Texas, and you should, deal with the fallout of signing that game thinking you're going to have an easy rollover. And lo and behold, Texas got good. So, yeah, I'm not too happy with it, but it is what it is. I'm not like mad at the committee. They did their jobs.
Okay.
And it's just, as long as people think that maybe this committee is not doing, or the whole thing is not being ran as it should, but the choice is made as was directed, then I'm cool with it. But otherwise,
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a ton of disagreement out there.
Mm-hmm.
People have opinions all over the place. Last two nights, both you guys on Sunday and me and Moen last night on our show, we talked about this, and I think it's going to be something that goes over time. This conversation is going to last the entire next year, so it's not like we're going to solve anything in this week to try to get that fixed. It's done. There's nothing we can do about it now. They're not going to change. Doesn't matter if the governor of Florida sues the NCAA. Doesn't matter. Nothing's changing. So those four teams are in. Texas and Alabama are in. I think the only arbitrary thing that I would have loved to have seen that they're never going to do is kicking Michigan out. They're the ones who I think really deserve to be punished, and not Florida State. So, anyways, we'll probably touch on that in a little bit, but
and it's like the sickest thing ever, really, like a bummer, right? Michigan gets in after they cheated for half the games this season. Right. Florida State's undefeated. 2 one-loss teams get in and they get left out. Like, what the heck? Like, this is so warped, guys. Like,
agreed.
This makes no sense in the context of sports. This isn't a beauty pageant. I didn't think it was until I found out on Sunday. It was a beauty pageant.
It is.
Well, it is, yeah.
And what everybody needs to realize, and that both me and you already knew, is this has happened many times before. The only difference is this is a P5 champion. But you could say back in the day, TCU and Utah both won the Mountain West undefeated, and they should have gotten in, and they didn't get in either. So this isn't the first time that a team's been shut out of a playoffs, especially the BCS. The BCS froze out BYU in 2001, sorry. So these teams get undefeated and they get treated like garbage because people are looking for the eye test, or they are looking for the best teams. All these little watchwords that are out there, they're excuses. At the end of the day, we don't care about any of that. We're going to talk more about how we did this weekend with our picks and some other things, but we will circle back and we'll talk about these 4 picks for the next month. And yeah, well, let's just sort of move on to new business. Before we get going, let me say hello to a bunch of new people. We picked up some new subscribers recently. I don't think those names are going to pop up right this second. We've given them the last 2 days, but I do know that there's a lot of people. Tell your friends, tell your family, anybody watching us, if they want to be part of the family, but consider joining and being an actual paid member. Go to the Big 12 Mafia page, hit the join link, and even for $2.99, you can join the group. All right, let's say some hellos. Glenn Lumen's here, all the way from the Philippines. Good to see you here, Glenn. He says, what is going on with the FAS? I'm not sure what you guys know what the FAS is.
I think he means the FBS.
Oh, FBS. Well, we'll talk about that, Glenn. We'll talk about that. Sergeant Pickles is here. He says, good evening, all go dogs. Yep, Kyle Visser's in the house. Casting for Chrome. Casting for Chrome, you're not a sub anymore? What? You got to fix that. Your name needs to be green with that special icon. I need that back. I need that back in my day. Let's see. Billy Tuesday is here. He says, howdy. Coy says, hi, all. Kyle Visser says, me, Moen, Nice do. There we go, Mo.
That is
Give
a
you
nice do.
Shout out for you.
Had my hair in curlers all day.
There you go. I like it. Let's see here. Kenneth Evans says, "Sup peeps? We got casting for Chrome. There is his icon's back. I'm not
Oh
sure what
wow,
happened.
man! Like you got that fixed quick.
That
Nice
was
job.
awesome. He says it was glitching. So
Asking ye
Anyway.
shall receive.
Hey, Matt, all I know is that everybody that's here, when I ask them to do something, we have one of the best cultures out there. You guys,
You
us
bet.
four, the people that come watch our shows, they really care, and I really appreciate them. Raider Vision is here. He says it's a popularity contest. Well, we'll talk about that. Let's see. Caden's dad says Jordan Travis should win the Heisman. He obviously is the most valuable player.
That is a
considering
great point.
He's the sole reason a team can be thrown out of the playoffs. Boy, isn't that the truth? Yeah, we might have to touch on that a little bit later. I'm going to mark that with a star. We might come back to that. Lonnie Johnston says, "Wild Dude, is UU ready for the Big 12 next year?"
What do you think I'm going to say, Lonnie? Yeah, UU's ready for the Big 12.
I love it. I love it.
Oh yeah.
We all can't wait for next year. I guarantee you. DeReal MVP says, were people this upset when Missouri with 2 losses was consistently ranked ahead of Louisville with 1 loss?
Some people were talking about how the SEC teams were not falling in rank as other teams were. I have, and I know other people have, and it's part of it when that becomes part of your. It's part of it. When you have losses and all those teams still maintain their ranks, it does affect at the top with the Alabamas, and so it is a thing, and it's a good point by DeReal.
Let's see here. Glenn Lumen, one last comment, says football autonomous schools. So that's the FAS. That's what, and that was coined today by the president of the NCAA, and we'll get to that in a little while.
I can't wait till we get to that. I cannot wait.
Okay, we'll get to it, I promise. Okay, Justin Cook, the last comment here, he says, happened in 21 when someone wanted an SEC school in a championship game. Well, you know, it happens from year to year, but it's never been this glaring, and it's never been a P5 champion. That's an undefeated P5 champion has never been frozen out. All right.
And they had a great OSC win against LSU, and
sure
they had plenty on their resume.
Well,
and the likely Heisman Trophy winner, I don't agree with it, but Jaden Daniels is getting all the love from SEC country. Florida State beats him on a neutral field. Top 5 matchup, first game of the season. This is one of the worst. Seriously, this Florida State thing. I know that we're going to get back into it, but it's got to be one of the worst snubs I've ever seen. It's horrible, guys. It's horrible. Makes me so mad.
Keep going, Ute, if you want. Everybody else has had a chance.
No, seriously, when you're undefeated and you've got 2 one-loss teams that jump you, and one of the one-loss teams lost to an Oklahoma team that ate 2 losses and everything, there's no way that, in my view, Texas should have got left out. I don't think you could have left out Alabama because they beat Georgia, and Georgia had won 3 years in a row and everything. And I get Texas beat them earlier in the year, but only one of those 2 get in. And I think Bama gets in. I would have put Bama in the number 4 spot, Florida State in the number 3 spot. My brother-in-law is a diehard Seminole fan. We were talking on Saturday night. I'm like, there's just no way you're going to get left out. And he was a little worried about it. I'm like, there's no freaking chance. None. And I see that. It's like, how does this even work? This isn't even sports anymore. Why are we in a beauty pageant? That's not what this is supposed to be about. It's all about what goes on the field. You're 13-0, and you got jumped by 1-loss teams. How does that make any sense, guys? When you look at the strength of schedule, when you look at the resumes, when you look at the LSU win, the Florida win, the Clemson win, and everything else, it just blows my mind. I just can't believe it.
So on Friday, when we did the Pick'em show, I said there was a real possibility Florida State could get left out.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it, and it didn't shock me at all. Now, is it right or wrong? Yeah, that's a subjective thing. You could make a call that was the wrong choice, or you could make the call that was the right choice. But unfortunately, until they get an AI, a computer, with a theorem, with a bunch of calculations that are transparent and everybody can see, and you can take people out of the equation as much as possible, even with 14 or 12 or 16 teams, they're still going to have problems with people on the tail end getting left out. And I can guarantee it's probably going to be a G5 school. that wasn't a champion, that was 12-1, maybe won like the MAC, and they're going to have an argument they want to be in on the 16th pick or the 12th pick. So everybody thinks this is going away once the picking is done and we're to 16 or 12 teams. That's not true at all.
How will people feel if, say, Alabama beats Michigan, Texas beats Washington, Alabama and Texas play, and Alabama beats Texas?
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
How will people feel?
Why?
I feel like Florida State got ripped off.
Florida State got ripped off, but I mean, Texas is kind of getting ripped off too in this whole situation.
What are you saying about Texas, Immaculate? Tell everybody what you mean.
Because this isn't the NFL where teams are playing each other twice in a season and then all this. Like, you play teams once, and they've already beaten Alabama at Alabama. And we've seen this happen before with LSU and Alabama, where they were brought together to play in the national championship again after LSU had beaten Alabama during the season. Alabama wins. The two teams go 1-1 against each other for the season, but Alabama gets crowned the champion. And the same thing would go for Texas and Alabama. It's like we beat Alabama at Alabama, and then you lose this other game, which is a neutral game to them, and they get crowned champion. And it's just, to me,
that's how it's set up. 4 teams, they play each other.
I don't need you to tell me how it's set up. I get that. I'm saying I don't like it. Is that
so? What's
clear?
The purpose of the playoff then?
That's why I'm saying Alabama, number one, being put in there with the team that they already lost to. It just doesn't make any sense. It's purely about views and like the amount of money that they're going to make off of it. And it goes along with the Florida State thing, is that Florida State hasn't lost to any of those teams. So these are all, even up. But if Texas loses to them, to me, it's I don't know, it's kind of cheap. When you take the Florida State angle and the Texas angle, it's just way too much favoritism towards Alabama.
Let me ask you this. Say Florida State was in the 4 and for some reason Michigan was excluded. If Texas beats Alabama, then are they the champion?
That's the same situation.
It isn't, because you're saying the FSU is being disadvantaged.
No, I'm saying
now.
I don't. These are two different situations. I'm saying I don't like that FSU is out, but I also don't like that Texas may have to relitigate that whole game that they went to Alabama, won, beat them, and now Alabama's sitting there with a 12-1 ranking or 12-1 thing with a loss to another team that's going in. I don't see if you're going to have to cut somebody out, why are you cutting out a team that's undefeated, conference champion, going in for a team that's already lost to one of the teams that's in your top 4? Like, it's just, I don't see any reason for it other than pure favoritism.
I think that you guys nailed it. I think Michigan's the team that should have got left out.
I have no problem with Michigan.
That's what no one's talking about.
The NCAA is too slow to act. Like, now this is more about the NCAA than it is Michigan. That's why you're seeing them go quiet, because this has happened, and the more they bring it up, the more they talk about it, people are going to say this is why the NCAA is bad, because they're so slow.
All right.
I think Michigan should just be kicked out of football. Period.
You know what? I'm with you, Moen. Let's just kick these guys out of football for good.
So we got a new member, Blaze Barstow, who's a University of Texas fan. Good to have you here, Blaze. Can we get there we go. Thank you for being here, Blaze. I can't see which membership you signed up for, but if you signed up as a founder, I will be sending you a rally towel. And I'm getting ready to put out 5 others, other membership ones I'm supposed to send out this week. So if you didn't sign up for that, that's totally cool. I just wanted to make sure you knew that if you did, I would get that out to you. All right.
What happens here? Okay, let's just throw this out. What happens if Michigan wins the national championship and Florida State beats Georgia and Michigan has to rescind the national championship in 6 months because they cheated?
But
I'd lose my mind if I'm Florida State. I'm losing my mind if that happens. I mean, that could very much happen, guys.
People lose championships, people win championships and then have them vacated.
Right.
But the team they beat doesn't become the champion.
Right. Keep us in mind, though, guys. There's polls that go on after the season. There's an AP poll, and I believe the Harris poll.
Right.
And they can choose a different national champion if they want
can.
to. If
That's
Florida
the split
State,
championship that
yeah.
UCF won most
if
recently.
Florida State wins against Georgia,
Yeah.
they have a very good argument to be the national champion.
I think you could see a
100%.
split. You could see a split championship this year
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
of that.
absolutely.
Yep, I agree with that. Texas could win the entire thing in the tournament, and Georgia loses to Florida State, and I could see a split championship there.
It could very
You
well
know?
end that way.
Yeah, that's a very big possibility. All I think people need to understand is these schools are behaving the way that they are based on the system as it sits today, based on the system, corrupt or not, that it is today. Nobody can go back and relitigate what happens after this because everybody's performing under the rules as they stand today. In 6 months, those rules might change, and then this outcome would have been different, but that doesn't mean you go back and relitigate it.
What it will affect our negotiations for 2026, guaranteed.
I definitely think this will add.
So that's what it's about.
to it.
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be like we should go and change this. I mean, it's done. It is what it is. But talking
ahead.
about it is fair in terms of they are about to start talking about what to do in 2026, and I think this result is going to affect that. So
I also think that it might add 4 teams and it becomes a 16-team playoff, and part of the reason is because they want more people in.
I think because of what happened there, I've been talking about this, so I'm biased, but I think that this goes even more towards not actually having a tournament like this and having each conference have their own thing, and then all come together after that in the end, just because that will remove most of the subjectiveness of this.
Like have a 4-team playoff based on like
Each-
the internal playoffs of each.
Each
like,
conference
four
have their own playoff, and then their champion comes into play, and people will be like,
I
"Oh,
dig it. Yeah, I like that.
I mean,
actually.
people didn't like the idea before this, but I think that this will cause a lot more people to like that idea." That's what I'm saying.
I disagree with that model because I think that what that takes away is you don't have as much cross conference games at the end of the year. It eliminates all of those, and you're only playing another conference. It removes the possibility of a great Georgia and Alabama team being in the end year tournament.
Yeah, but
and I think that carries more value than the individual conference championships.
If you got 20 to 24 teams in your conference, though, I mean, you're kind of at the point where you're your own league.
But at the end of that's a whole different. We'll get into that a different.
Right, I know, but we've made that discussion, though. I mean,
yeah,
so
we'll come back.
That's
to it.
what I'm talking about is the future.
Okay. All right, let's get to our picks. Let me bring those up really quick. I think with all of us, you guys can see those. So before we dive into these things, I want to encourage everybody to follow us on Twitter and turn on your notifications for both YouTube and Twitter, and subscribe to this channel. Consider becoming a paying member, like, again, Blaze Barstow just became today. And we welcome everybody. And, this next off season, we're going to be doing a bunch of new things. We have big ideas that we might talk about doing, new products we might have, and just get started right now if you feel like it. Either way, become a regular subscriber. It doesn't cost anything, and we'd love to have you here. All right. I'm just going to quickly cruise through these. There's only a couple we're going to want to talk about. Does anybody want to say anything about New Mexico State, Liberty, Miami, or Toledo? I think, Moen, you have something to say about the Miami of Ohio and Toledo game, right?
Well, the New Mexico and Liberty game in particular, because
go ahead,
the
then.
refs completely flipped the script to make Liberty cover on that game. There were 2 touchdowns that were pulled back. I think it was that game. Yeah. That was a terrible game. Toledo versus Miami, another terrible game where I think the refs just completely blew the game out of the water for Toledo. But I also think that Jason Candle, the rumors of him leaving Toledo, took a lot out of his team. I don't think they played nearly as well. They'd been outstanding all season, and they just kind of shit the bed as soon as I picked them.
Anybody else want to say anything about those two?
I'm interested in Liberty. I actually want to watch the Liberty Oregon game. I mean, I know Oregon's not going to have other guys, and it's not going to be the full team, but I'm just curious, like out of pure curiosity, because we don't really have any frame of reference as to how good. I mean, we have New Mexico State and what they did against Auburn. We have what Auburn did against Alabama. And then we have what Liberty and New Mexico State.
Mhm.
Just by direct comparison, you could say Liberty might be able to hang with Auburn. I mean, you think that's crazy, but New Mexico State kicked the shit out of Auburn at home. Alabama barely beat Auburn at home. And then Liberty in a home game, they beat New Mexico State, but that's it. So I'm kind of curious to see how Liberty stacks up. And plus, but I don't think they're going to have their quarterback because he just jumped in the portal. So we'll see.
Wait,
But,
Liberty's quarterback just jumped in the portal?
Yeah.
Salter?
Oh,
That guy's-
yeah.
He's good.
One of the most underrated guys in the portal, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Liberty's going to get absolutely smoked.
Yeah.
Bill Tuesday,
I hope they have a good backup. We'll see.
Billy Tuesday says Toledo's QB also went into the portal.
Wow.
Yeah, and
He
he's
did.
another good one.
Hey, I want to throw a kudos out there for
Sure.
casting for Chrome. I know it's been tough in Oregon State Beaverland, but some Schadenfreude again seeing Liberty and Oregon play in a bowl game.
Absolutely. That's right.
Enjoy it.
That's right.
Enjoy it while you can.
Let's see here. Caden's dad says Liberty should be in the playoffs. There you go. Let's see here. What I wanted to say about UNLV Boise State is that Ute and I knew exactly what Boise was going to do there. I think we
Mhm.
predicted the future there, Ute.
Mhm.
And that's just they play fantastic in bowl games. SMU Tulane. Anybody want to say anything about that one?
SMU looked pretty good. I mean, where are they going to be next year in the ACC, right? They
I think
might
they're gonna
surprise.
struggle. I think they're going to struggle.
Really? I
It's
thought they
so
looked
hard to move up.
Tulane has played
G5.
pretty well when they've played upwards, haven't they?
They have, yep.
And
they have.
SMU looked good against them. This is one more of those. I don't know, I guess maybe call it a transitive thing, like with Liberty and New Mexico State, and then Auburn and Alabama. Looking at Tulane and what they've done and how SMU played against them, they might surprise us next year because look, there's some teams in the ACC that aren't that good either. So we'll see.
SMU
Especially-
is going to be a great case study because, like, I don't know about next year. I don't have a lot of confidence, but over the 10-year period, especially with the enhanced educational trust fund conversation we're going to get into here soon, SMU is going to be sitting very pretty with fat coffers. Seriously, these guys are going to be players. I'm telling you guys, in the future of college football, because they're going to be buying some seriously good teams.
So
Yeah, especially with this trust fund, like you're saying, that's 100.
That SMU
Yeah.
is one team to just say, like, this team's going to rise.
the ACC next year might be light a bunch of top tier programs. So
Mhm.
SMU
Mhm.
going into a wounded ACC definitely has a chance.
I meant that. I don't know if they're going to lose those programs for next season. They
I
might.
think they're
think
going
so?
to, but that's
Okay.
just my opinion. I mean,
No, that's fine. I
everybody
mean,
has a different opinion.
none of us have any idea of like what's going to actually
Yeah.
happen, so it's fair.
Let's see. App State, Troy. What do you want to say about that one, Moen?
I still love you, App State.
Yeah, let me down. What was up with that?
Oklahoma State, Texas. This is for Barstow. I was wrong. Okay, Texas took them out to the woodshed. I was wrong about that. So, anybody want to say anything about Oklahoma State, Texas?
Texas did what they had to do, man. Like I said, I've been kind of watching them. I don't want to be like I'm a fan of Texas this year on a Big 12 show, but I like what I see with them, and I think that I'd be a little worried if I was Washington State, but I'd also be worried if I was Texas because Penix is looking good.
What? Let's play a little futurosity here. If Texas had only beat Oklahoma State by a touchdown, do they still make the playoff? Because
Yeah.
I
They
think
have to.
Georgia. I think
Mhm.
Georgia goes in if Texas wins.
They
week.
have to. They had to with Alabama.
Yeah.
I think they would have taken Georgia. I
No,
wish we could play that game.
If Georgia made it, I think that actually Florida State gets in.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I think
Yeah.
the only reason.
You
I think the only reason.
You think it's bowling pins. If Texas doesn't make it, Alabama doesn't make it. If Alabama doesn't make it, that brings Georgia back in with Florida State.
If Georgia
Like-
wins, Alabama's out, and then Texas is out because that win's not as significant.
Yeah, we're not talking about Georgia winning. I'm talking about the
Yeah.
after the loss.
Wilder just said it though. That would be my thoughts as well.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. If Alabama loses that game, Texas's win isn't as big, and they don't look. I could be wrong, but this was about the SEC, getting the SEC in. There hasn't been a single one of these CFPs that has not had an SEC team. They had nothing to look at and say, what is our viewership going to be without an SEC team? This, in my opinion, this was a business move, and that's why Texas had to be in if Alabama was in. So it's it is what it is.
Texas winning by a touchdown, I think, could have changed that calculation. Anyway, Iowa State, Michigan. What do you guys want to say about that one, you guys?
Iowa who?
Michigan?
I still hate you, Michigan.
I thought I heard
I
a
hate,
state
I hate
in
you,
there.
Michigan, too.
Okay.
Screw Michigan.
Michigan used to be one of the most storied programs. They've lost it all in 4 months. It's insane. Louisville, Florida State. What can you say? Florida State was able to gut out a win, but it was probably the ugliest P5 championship game I have ever seen.
It's gutsy, though. They got it done.
Yep.
Against all odds, right?
That's true.
Yeah, better to win ugly than lose pretty.
Yeah.
That's true, too.
Hey,
Go
won
ahead.
our coach a title. If still talking about Iowa, I mean, offense sucked, but I think that we held Michigan pretty well, and that got Phil Parker a title.
I think that run back early in the second quarter really changed the dynamics of that game. It was 3-0, and
our quarterback loves to give up the ball too. It's fucking garbage.
Yeah, it was too bad. If you guys would have just had a little bit of offense this year.
We had another quarterback
endings.
that was never given a chance, and he entered the transfer portal, and good luck to him. I would have done the same thing. It was terrible.
I look at Iowa and Utah. If they would have had a serviceable quarterback this year, we'd be looking at a different playoff. I think.
If we would have had just a mediocre offense, I think we would have beat Michigan.
Yeah. I know that sticks in Utes' craw, but it's a fact.
I mean, yeah, if Rising played this year, it'd be a different story for sure. Utah would have competed. This Pac-12 is so stacked, though. I don't think they go undefeated at all. They're probably eating 2 losses in conference play, right outside looking in. That's kind of how I see it. If Rising played, I'm glad he's coming back next year because I think there is a real shot that the Utes are going to get in the playoff.
Alabama, Georgia. What do you guys want to say about that? I was actually surprised. I thought Georgia was going to win handily. Actually, I didn't think it would be even. I thought it'd be outside the margin, 7 points, and obviously Alabama came to play.
Yeah, Alabama did. They showed up. I mean, whenever you beat a team that hasn't lost in years and years, it's always an impressive feat. And I would be a little sore if I was Georgia. You lose one game in 3 years, and it's a close game. It's a hard-fought battle. Then you get bounced from playoff contention. That sucks too. It makes sense, but it sucks. I mean, and Georgia certainly could win the CFP if they got in.
Yep.
But they lost. I mean, that was at least due to a loss. Like, it sucks, but they lost.
You know who else lost? Alabama and Texas.
I know.
Florida State.
I'm with you.
Lose.
Well, that's the difference between Georgia and Florida State. People said, well, what about Georgia's injuries because of Bowers and the receiver McCloskey, whatever his name is? They had guys who were injured. They were not looking that great, but they actually lost a game. And so, I mean, that matters.
Excuse me. And then the final game is Washington, Oregon, which obviously I was super excited about. I've got to get a jersey that I can wear the rest of the month to celebrate them, and hopefully they can get a playoff win this year. But what stood out most to you guys about that game? I think Washington put the wood to Oregon.
I love the running attack from Washington and the physicality they played with in that football game. They're going to need to bring that to they're playing Texas, right? First round.
Right.
Texas, I mean, that's going to be, you're going to have to play that football game. You're going to have to sling it. Man, I tell you what, I know that FSU's out of the playoff. That sucks. But the games are really good. Really, these playoff games are so exciting. Washington to Texas is going to be such a good game. It's going to be a shootout and everything. And Bama, Michigan's going to be such a hard-fought bloodbath. But the physicality they brought versus Oregon, they need to bring versus Texas to have a shot.
Agreed. Moen or Immaculate, you want to say anything about that game?
I thought that it was such a good game and that Washington looked so good in it that I thought they deserved the number 1 ranking.
I did too.
And, not to get too kind of kooky crazy about it, but if they had gotten number 1, they're in the Rose Bowl.
Right.
And,
They would have been
and
playing
they're
Pasadena.
playing Texas there.
Right.
But now they have to go to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans to play Texas, which is just right across the state border from Texas.
Right.
It's a home
And
game.
so they got to go long range. And Michigan has to actually go far, but it's the Rose Bowl. They wouldn't have minded. But to play Alabama, who, I'd say there's good reason to think that Bama could beat Michigan, and you're giving Texas, the travel edge against Washington. To me, it almost looks like they want that rematch.
I think they do.
They want the Alabama-Texas rematch. And that's why I brought that up earlier, because that could come into play. Like, if Alabama wins that, people are going to feel differently about it, and that's cool. But I think it's just another step in cheapening the regular season.
Let's see here. There was a stat that I just had, and I clicked on the wrong one. The UW running back had Sergeant Pickles. I'm sorry, I lost it for some reason. He said that Washington running back had 1,100 yards this year. So
Yeah.
he was no neophyte to running the ball. We just didn't hear a lot about it because we heard a lot about
How
Penix,
Oregon was
right?
going to smash Washington. Remember all that
Yeah.
narrative, all the momentum narrative?
Yeah, I remember it.
I
It
don't.
screwed me over.
I don't remember any of it because
I wasn't buying it.
It
Yeah,
was
so
nonsense.
well done,
All
Pickles.
right. All right. Well, let's get on to our picks so everybody can kind of see where we ended up. The week. This is the finals. I was 5-5. Immaculate was 4-6. Moen was 1-9, and Wild Ute had the best week of the entire year at 8-2. What do you want to tell us about the way you picked your games there, Ute?
Yeah, just it's just luck on a dartboard sometimes. The only one that I felt really, really good about was that Washington pick. Everything else, just sheer luck.
All right, very fair. Moen or Immaculate, anything you want to say about the picks?
I love underdogs way too much.
Yeah, a little bit.
Congratulations on winning.
Yeah, so let's get to that final thing, and that is me. I win.
The super champion.
The super champion of champions. Okay.
Oh, good old Tecmo
The
Bowl.
line
Tecmo
master.
Bowl. That's right. Give me Bo Jackson every time. Anyway.
Well done,
Steve,
Bomber.
Thank you.
Good job.
I appreciate
Seriously.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Tip the cap.
It look at our final records. Actually, it was 58-52. Immaculate was 56, just 2 games behind. Moen bringing up, he was perfect there for a lot of the weeks. He was always there carrying up the bottom at 39-71, and Wild Ute was just a game below 500 at 54-56. So, did you guys have fun? That's the most important thing, right? We did this to have fun.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I was coming for you, man, and I couldn't pull you in.
Yeah, that one extra game I think made a big difference. Boise State and Washington really is what put me over the top, I think.
What
That's all-
lesson did you guys learn about Boise State? I want to hear it. I want to hear it,
here
Moan. What did you learn about Boise State?
What did you hear?
They've got blue turf.
Yeah, that's true too.
I learned never to bet on the new program in the postseason, like with UNLV.
There you go.
They don't. They might have a good season, but that just kind of seemed to be the thing. Like, it's just
right. I'm gonna get some sort of an award that we can pass around. So I could send it to Ute could send it to Moen. We'll do something. But I just want to use this as a bridge and a pass off to, we're going to be doing a holidays bowl edition where we're going to pick all the major bowl games, including the playoff games. And I would like to involve all you, the watchers and the listening audience. I'm not sure how to do that. I don't know how to build the online database to be able to do it. If there's anybody that knows how to build say 20 game spreadsheet that everybody can go in and make their own picks so we can have people sign in online, I would love to do it. But
we might be able to do that through ESPN. I think they've got a bowl thing where we can set up a group and everybody can play.
So if you know how to do that, Mo, and I'm going to ask you to help sort of spearhead that. But we want to involve everybody that wants to be involved. I wanted to bring up before we moved on to the next thing that Casting for Chrome sent me his picks, and he picked New Mexico, Toledo, UNLV, Tulane, App State, Texas, Michigan, FSU, Bama, and Oregon. So that's 6-4, I think, right? Isn't that a 6-4 record?
I think you flipped that. I think it's 4-6.
4-6. Okay, sorry. I was trying to do that in my head. I appreciate you sending those over to me, Casting for Chrome. That's been fun. I know there's been other people that have sent them to me throughout the weeks. It's hard for me to sort of keep track of all of them. So if I missed yours, I apologize. There was one other one up here. I'm not sure if I marked it. Let me see. No, I didn't mark it. So there was somebody else that just said they did 6-4. But we appreciate everybody participating. It's been a lot of fun, and we're glad to be here and be able to do it. All right. So we have the holiday thing coming up with the bowl games. We'll get that put together. We'll communicate that out through Twitter. I'm just trying to make sure I cover all news items before we move on to the next topic. I think we're good. So if you're new to the show, please subscribe on YouTube, and then follow us on Twitter, and then turn on your notifications so you always know what we're doing and you can be part of the activities here. I think that's a lot of fun. Let's get to Tony Lawson had a $5 super chat. He says, did you guys ever talk about the 19 million viewers for Michigan and versus Ohio State? 23 million at the high point of the telecast. Wow. So that was last week.
Yeah.
And we did talk about it. But anybody want to say anything more about that?
College football is not becoming less popular.
That's exactly.
Like, seriously, look at these
No, it's
numbers.
not.
Like, these are nuts.
They just came out with the numbers too, and
I've got them. I've got them for this.
You
week.
got it, yeah, because this was the highest viewed college football season of all time. So when people talk about, the money's not going to be as big as projected and all this, I'm like, I have a hard time believing that. I mean, it could possibly be less because it happens. Projections can be off. But if viewership numbers are going up and we're getting more and more drama, more people are going to turn in, and especially with gambling now. I think Moen's point on that before was just right on. Gambling is driving a lot of this.
And I'm looking at the Pac-12 championship number too.
Let me bring those up. Let me bring those up right now.
That's a huge number too.
That's a big number.
9.2 million viewers for the Pac-12 championship. That basically almost doubled up from what we've seen historically. And there was a lot riding on that game. That makes sense. I'm on the sports media watch right now, and I'm looking actually at something else that was really interesting to me. Around the same time as the Pac-12 championship game, UConn and KU were playing in basketball. It was a top 5-6 matchup. And I was kind of curious what kind of ratings I would pull. It's tough because you're going against the Pac-12 championship, but we're talking so much about b-ball ratings versus football ratings.
Right.
That game pulled in 651,000 viewers.
Yeah.
And that is UConn versus Kansas in men's basketball.
There's no way they were going to do any number head-to-head against that game. There's no way.
But yeah, it just gives you a little perspective, really, on because that's a big-time game for college basketball.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Let's talk about this week's championship numbers. So Alabama, Georgia, almost 18 million. Michigan, Iowa. These aren't a surprise, by the way. 10 million. Washington, Oregon. That last year, I think it was 7.2 Ute. I think the championship game last year was like 7.25. So they beat it by 2 million. Texas, Oklahoma State did almost the exact same number as it did last year. And Texas and Oklahoma weren't in that game last year. So they seem to be holding true with the same numbers. FSU, Louisville, 7 million. FSU, Louisville. SMU, Tulane, just under 2 million. Miami, Toledo, over 1 million. That should be a good number. The Mountain West number was only 1.26. I think that tells you the AAC is above where the Mountain West is right now in viewership.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Well, the AAC was on broadcast, and I believe the Mountain West was on
Fox.
Yes, it was on Fox.
Okay.
Fox.
Yeah.
The championship games get better viewed, and that's why, one of the reasons why I think conference playoffs would be good is because they can get on the networks better, and you see it here. Even like the Mountain West normally has a CBS deal during the season. For this game, they got on Fox.
Very good. Does anybody want to make any other comments about this before we move on to our next thing?
Just one, really kind of a cool little thing to look at. If you look at the 4 o'clock on Saturday window, you have the AAC and the SEC at 17.5 plus the 1.8. So you're at about 19, almost 20 million there. And at the 8 o'clock period with the Big Ten and the ACC,
Yeah.
you are at about 17. So you actually didn't get that much of a drop. So a lot of people, and I'm sure if you look at the 12 o'clock, and 12 o'clock is actually quite a bit lower. So usually that one gets a lot higher views. So maybe more people pushed into the later evenings on that. I don't know. But I just thought that was interesting how the late night one actually had that much aggregate viewership.
You guys, this is amazing me too on the ratings. So that Ohio State-Michigan game got over 19 million viewers, right? We're just talking about that.
Right.
This last week for the NFL ratings, that beat 3 of 5 NFL games that were on national television.
Right.
The Seattle-Dallas game got a 15 million views, Denver-Houston 14 million views, Detroit-New Orleans 12. That's basically an above average NFL game. That's how big that is. That's so big. I mean, like, or an average NFL game, but I mean, NFL is king, right? So that is big.
There's a lot of money in postseason games.
Oh my gosh.
That Seattle Cowboys game was the most viewed most viewed Amazon program live ever. All activities, everything they've ever done, that game drew the highest rating than they've ever had.
15 million views.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people talking about getting rid of these conference championship games. I just point to these numbers and say, oh, yeah, you think the conferences and the networks are going to do that?
No, I don't think they're getting rid of the championship games at all.
No, I know, but fans, like, people are like, oh, we should get rid of them. They don't mean anything anymore. I'm like, well, maybe not the way we look at it, but when you look at these numbers, the networks and conference are, they're
so
thinking
next year,
great.
Next year, those championship games are going to control who gets the buys.
Oh, yeah.
So they definitely mean something next year.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Yeah. In fact, all of them, they might easily draw into the 15, 16 million because of it. Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah.
College football is just getting more and more popular. And, I love that as a college football diehard. I love to see the sport grow.
Right.
The money is getting bigger. The NIL is getting crazier. And, like, it's just wacko, right? What we're seeing here. But it's cool as a college football fan.
Does anybody still want to, because I have one other note that I could bring up about Florida State and the conspiracy part of it, if you guys want to talk Florida State, but if you're burned out on that, we can move right to this new thing that came out today. Ross Dellinger put this out about Charlie Baker, and we can jump right into what that, because that's a whole thing all by itself. What do you guys want to do? Want to talk FSU for a few more minutes, or do you want to jump right into the Charlie Baker news?
Charlie Baker news.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. We can always talk about Florida State. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not a big deal to me on Florida State. I think that this is probably the big thing that people want to talk about.
Okay, so who feels like they know the most about this that wants to walk through this? I read it. I think we've all seen it. What do you guys think? Who wants to walk through this the most? I don't care who does it.
Go ahead, Moan.
I was gonna say Immaculate probably has been champing at the bit.
I've been so busy today. Honestly, I was kind of hoping you guys would lead the way on this.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we can certainly do the high level, if that's what you want. I know you just talked about it. Why don't you tell everybody what you're talking about with the different divisions?
It's a proposal right now that's out there. It's not official, right? It's an idea that's been pitched of really like essentially almost like a new governance structure, new way of doing things in major college sports, where enhanced educational trust funds would be set up for schools if you decided to opt into a structure like that. So each school will have a decision if they want to be an opt-in or opt-out, and to be opt-in, then you'll have access to build an NIL war chest in the form of a trust fund. The NIL war chest is going to be funded by boosters. It's going to be regulated by the school and not an outside entity that's loosely affiliated with the school. And the NIL war chest, again, the enhanced educational trust fund, basically will have they'll distribute money to athletes, and not just football athletes, but we're talking about women's sports athletes and athletes all across the board. There are minimums for how much an athlete would get from the trust fund if you decide to opt in as a school, and that's at least $30,000 per year per student athlete. That's the bare minimum. So this would be a costly proposition for a lot of schools, said to be in the range of anywhere from $5 to $8 million, depending on how many scholarship athletes your school might have. The reason this is attractive for a lot of A4 schools is because you can get it's a way to hedge against further lawsuits. When with these lawsuits going on about making student athletes employees, or the arguments that student athletes might become employees, this is a way that you could work around that without those lawsuits actually coming to fruition and possibly really affecting the game in colleges in the future. So it's kind of a protective way that the NCAA can give, where they can bypass lawsuits for the employment rationale there. So really, again, the mechanics of it, there's no salary cap in this. So boosters fund it, fans fund it. Who knows like how they get the funding? It's a war chest of funds that gets distributed to student athletes. Since Title IX is applicable here, women athletes are going to have access to the funds too, and it's unknown on what allocations a women's sport might get compared to a man's sport.
It actually said it was a 1-to-1 ratio.
1-to-1 ratio. There you go.
So and the minimum for that was $30,000 per student.
Per
year.
student. So that's some of the thinking. You still have to fund it though. So each school is going to figure out how to get enough
Right, you're talking
donors
millions
to
of
fund it.
dollars. Just right.
And so and the question is, can we afford to opt in? And there's a lot of discussion like, hey, maybe all the A4 schools are going to be required to opt in, which no one knows yet, but that's just conjecture. But how are you going to fund it in the school like in Ohio State versus the University of Utah? Ohio State's going to have more donors to be able to build a bigger trust fund. I want to call it the war chest. And there's no salary cap or limits to the money that you can give to student athletes. So in theory, you could have $1 billion in your war chest and distribute that to your athletes if you really wanted to, if you had the means to do so. So there's concerns about inequality too, as far as allocation, compensation inequality.
Becky, go Huskies. Good to have you here, Becky.
Yeah.
Go Huskies. She sums this up a little bit by saying this will only lead to the top schools destroying the bottom. We're talking about the A3/A4 conferences, the only ones that really can afford to do these things. G5 would disappear for all intents and purposes, and they wouldn't be competing at the same level. She continues, G5 will never be able to compete outside the top two. This will get insanely expensive as it gets more and more competitive. I would say it's still going to be competitive enough for the 3 to 4 conferences that continue to share in the higher part of the playoff money.
This is a game-changing thing,
it's
right?
A proposal. Let's be very clear. This is only a proposal.
It's a proposal, but given who it's proposed by, it's significant.
Well, so let's talk about that. The NCAA has proposed 3 or 4 things asking for help. Now they're asking for help from Congress to marshal all control over NIL. Now he comes out with this proposal asking for more help to basically keep the NCAA solvent. That's what he's trying to do. So I think this isn't so much a protection of the students or the universities as it is a protection of the NCAA, because the NCAA would administer this whole new system. It's like adding a new secretary to the federal government of the United States. We want a department of fresheners, air fresheners, and to administer that department of air fresheners, we have to put 20 people. 20 million people to administer it. That's what the NCAA, in my opinion, is trying to do here. Is they're trying to keep themselves solvent.
Absolutely, and what's the question is, what's in it for the school?
Right.
What's in it for Ohio State or Michigan?
Right.
I mean, they can hedge against lawsuits and move away from making athletes employees. That's really what they're getting out of this.
Daniel Gagax here with a super chat. Is the NCAA proposal a way to settle the SCOTUS suit? This is for you, Immaculate. A way to settle the SCOTUS suit, and will all power conference schools be on board? And if not, will those schools leave FBS?
Tough one to answer. I can only just really give my opinion in that I think that this is actually a response. I think with all the suits and everything going on, I think that the power conferences, whatever you want to call them, have probably said that they may have to leave the NCAA, kind of like they did in 2014. And I think this is the NCAA's response to that. So in terms of getting rid of suits, yeah, I think that this is definitely in response to suits. I don't think that this has all happened on its own. They want to get ahead of some of those. If they get Congress, which they need to come in before this, they need Congress to pass something in order to make this then be possible. And this all has to happen before the January convention, which is a month away. So we're in a very tight timeline here. And I do think that they're trying to get ahead of some of these lawsuits, definitely. In terms of anyone leaving to not be part of it, I think first off, give him the applause. That was a great lead. And I was actually learning from you at the time while you were saying that. So I think, as you're saying, this is just a proposal, and it's not going to look like this in its final form.
Sure.
Some of this stuff is going to be different, whether it's you have to spend $30,000. It'll probably go down. Remember, if this is going to pass the total body vote in the NCAA, that's a lot of schools voting. One thing I pointed out on a different call, this is going to affect the basketball tournament. That amount of money is going to keep some basketball players at major schools much longer than just their freshman and sophomore year, because many of them are going to the pros and then getting shuttled off to the G League, which pays them, garbage. So I think that's going to make the big programs in basketball better, and they're going to be that much more dominant in the big tournament. And so there's a lot of votes in the NCAA of schools who have kind of gotten used to them losing players after their freshman and sophomore year. So are they going to be happy about this? I think they're going to want to see that number lowered.
Jeremy 635 says that's all we need is more taxes and government. We don't need government involvement. We have more important problems in our country.
Here's something. Here's something I've thought about too. Like there's no indication that this would effectively eliminate what we know as a collective or NIL right now. Like, so it's all being done by nonprofit organizations. Your collectives are nonprofits, fundraising arms that give money directly to the players, right, through contracts for taking pictures or doing some type of service. In theory, that's how NIL should work. I believe that that's still going to be around even if this proposal passes. So the question I have is, like, does this change anything really? And this is going to sound really cynical, but this is really the reality of probably how a lot of these schools are going to look at it. If you're building a large war chest and stuff, how can you get away from Title IX without paying a bunch of money out to the women's sports? How can you?
There isn't one.
And so what you do is you don't let the university run the NIL like that's being proposed. You actually have an outside arm doing it. And we know there's lawsuits going on right now for that to try to bring that in-house. But I think that that's not going to change anytime soon. I think that we're kind of going there a little bit. And we're still going to fund these outside NIL arms. There's going to be something in-house where we're paying student athletes directly to get away from the lawsuits. And they'll both coexist, and we'll still run into this mess that we're in today.
So think about it. How many ways there's already been a drop off in donations to universities so that money gets funneled to the NIL, which then they can pay players. But what that's currently doing on these campuses is starving them of operational money. Schools that used to use that money to keep the lights on, that money's not there anymore because they're paying an NIL so they get the best players. So you add a third arm to where they might need to do a manual sort of a donation to subsidize this other thing. There's only so many ways you can cut up the melon and continue to have high levels of donations.
I think that the athletic departments have seen money go away from them and go to NIL. And I think to some degree they want that money to come back.
They do.
And that's part of this. And so if I was in an NIL collective and working for that and building that up, I'd be worried today. I would be worried that the ADs are coming for you. Not you directly, but, for your money.
Here's the thing: is like actually the ads and like the coaches actually pretty much organize the NILs. Like not formally but informally. Like
Yeah.
so they're all like they know the people that are running the NILs and everything. And like it's real close.
Yeah, for now, I mean, that's where that money's going to come from. I mean, you're talking about donations, right? That are coming in, and then they can use it to directly pay. I mean, that's what NIL does. So I don't see both systems really working together when the ADs are going to be asking those big donors to start bringing the money back in, because they literally told donors start giving money to the NILs. So
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's the only way.
Bomber, I'll be honest, the background that's going on right now kind of looks like a kaleidoscope to me a little bit. This is a new background.
It is a new background. I'm just showing everybody tonight. I got it from Jason Watkins, made it for me. And in the future, I might have new ones, but this is the one that I've got running right now. I think it's pretty cool.
It is.
I like
cool.
it. It kind of changes up what's going on the show. Cleveland Rocks, who is one of our paying members, says, do your civic duty and hit the like button. I'm going to recommend everybody does that. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Right now, we're talking about some heavy-duty NCAA regulation type things. Tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern, be here. I'm going to have Bob Thompson on, and we're going to talk about all these new things. We're going to talk about Florida State. We're going to talk about the college football playoff. And we're certainly going to talk about this proposal by Charlie Baker. Let me get to a couple comments here. Let's see. Becky Go Husky says University of Oregon women's beach volleyball is suing the university over Title IX violations and NIL money not being dispensed to women athletes.
Yes.
That is the concern, because right now there's no regulation. There's not a requirement to give a dollar to men. You have to give the same dollar to women.
Right.
There's no requirement to do that.
It's happening already, right? This lawsuit is happening already, and we're already in litigation with this, and it makes sense. It does, because we're talking about a university here, right? We're not talking about a semi-pro team that's on the side. This isn't the Kansas City Chiefs here, right? This is the University of Washington or University of Utah, and so there's no way to get around that. There's no way to do it. So it's going to happen. Yeah.
And that lawsuit had a lot to do with facilities too. I mean, if you saw some of the facilities that the women there are using and playing, and how little funding there was for it, I think it's I think the part that has the most teeth is the inequality in the funding of their actual facilities. I mean, we're talking about like locker rooms and some of the facilities like around their beach volleyball and whatnot like that. So, that's where they might need to start bringing some of this money in so they can start funding some improvements on their facilities. Because I think that's the part of that lawsuit that's going to have teeth.
I think right now BYU has 876 athletes. They participate in over 30 sports. If something like this was to go into action, I could easily see 70% of those sports disappearing.
And might be an unintended consequence.
Yeah, and that means BYU turns them right now, and I think Utah's been like this too, like lacrosse and some of these others are club sports. Now, Utah since then has gotten their lacrosse into the main lacrosse system, but BYU's had lacrosse for 20 years. It just was club. So I could easily see them saying, you know what, you can participate in these sports, but it's only going to get very little money from the university because it's a club activity. They'll provide uniforms, maybe they'll help with travel, but the Title IX requirement goes away if it's an unregulated club. And I could easily see that taking over on most of these college campuses because they can't afford to do basketball and football funding. It's going to have to, that money's going to have to stay in-house and not go to these other sports.
Yep. I think that could be an unintended consequence of this. I don't know if I would say as many as you say, but I don't know how many it would be. I just think in general, you might see kind of the shuttering of some sports because of all this going on. And that's not to say that I don't think that athletes should get their just due and shouldn't fight for their just due. I just think that they need to realize that one of the unintended consequences of what's going on in fighting for their rights is that some other student athletes might actually lose their scholarships.
Yeah. It's true.
It is. It's just what's probably going to happen. And it's not to say someone shouldn't be pushing for their NIL money or all that, because I think that that's their right. But, as adults, as people who kind of got to judge and look at this and say, this could happen.
Raider Vision, one of our paid members, says if the proposal goes forward, I do believe that collectives will go away. If you read the article, and I'm going to repost the link so everybody can go and read it, that's not what it says. It actually says that the NIL collectives would work hand in hand with the university and the sports. So I would encourage everybody to take the link that I just put in the comment section, go back and read it, and we're going to talk about this article for the next several weeks. This will be a topic tomorrow.
All month.
It'll be all month. We'll be talking about this. So educate yourselves. I would encourage you to go online, do some searches, and try to find out information. This Ross Dellinger article was on Yahoo. Go read it. And then when you come back in later shows, we can have more of an in-depth conversation about it.
Yeah. One last thing on that, if I might, and then I'm
Sure.
done on that. Just so people understand, this has to get passed through the NCAA. And the NCAA only votes one time a year, and that's at the January convention. That's coming up in a month. So that's why you're seeing this pop up now, and you're going to see this pop up a lot. And they also need some action from Congress in that short amount of time. So
Yeah.
we're going to probably be seeing a lot about this during this month.
Becky Go Husky says Title IX requires the equal sports between men and women. Most universities have more women's sports than men. The reason that is because it's not the sports that have to be the same. It's the number of players. Everything has to be even. If there's a football player, you have to have somebody in another sport that's a women's soccer, women lacrosse, something like that.
And football generally has a lot more players.
Yeah, 120 players on the Colorado team. 120 players were getting some sort of money this last year.
Bomber, I think in the future it'd be awesome to bring Becky on to have a conversation around this too, to get her.
We can talk about it right now if you want. I can certainly.
I would love to bring her on, either now or later and stuff to. Get her
we're
thoughts.
talking about it now. It's up to you guys. Are you guys okay with me bringing Becky on if she wants to visit?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, let's do it. I would just really quick before we do that, Daniel Gygax, we're going to talk about this topic tomorrow. This idea that I think it was MH Ver proposed, said he's heard people talking about the ACC and the Big 12 merging. I'm going to tell you right now, as long as Brett Yormark's around, that's never going to happen. And there's reasons for it. It's not just I'm being contrarian for MH Ver. I actually like the guy. In fact, I've supported most of the stuff he's put out, but this is one rumor. I can detail why that's not going to happen. If
he's being talked to by someone, they're kind of using him to put something out as leverage, but it's not actually going to happen. But it doesn't mean no one's talking to him. He's just making shit up. It's just,
no, he's not making it up. I'm
right,
certainly
but someone's using him.
Somebody is using him to get that out there. And there's a reason for it, Daniel. We'll talk about it in another show. I don't have time tonight, but I actually had broken it down. I might even type it up and I can walk everybody through why that won't happen. But it's not going to be tonight. I am excited about it, though. I saw your post. I'm like, wait a second. I want to talk about that.
I'm excited about that right now, Bomber.
I know, but we're going to have to wait because I just invited. I just welcomed in Becky. Becky, I posted the link right there if you want to join us. Come on in. We'll just wait a second here.
The merger, the merger idea. It's
Don't get going on it yet. We'll talk about it later. Don't do it now. Becky, go Huskies. How we doing?
Good. Hi guys. How are y'all? You?
It's been a minute. We appreciate you coming on tonight. You being a valued member of our mafia as it is, we really appreciate you coming and sharing your time with us.
And Becky, I just want your perspective too on all this stuff. I know you follow it pretty closely, and again, for perspective, just let us know kind of how you see this all shaking out and what's going on.
Yeah, sure. I think the Title IX thing is the interesting aspect in all of this, right? If you're going to have these, not just collective, but this trust fund, if you're going to have a trust fund, right? At some point, I can't speak for every state, but like Washington State is slowly getting to a point where men and women have to be paid equally. So you'll see that at the university level. So if this did go into effect, the women would have to be paid equally out of that trust fund equally as the men.
Right.
So let's just say it out loud. Like Michael Penix Jr. would be paid equally as, say, a member of the cross country team,
That's
on
right.
the women's cross country team. So
That's right.
Which kind of makes you think like NIL wouldn't end then, though, right? Like,
no,
because there's still going
no.
to be people who want to pay him for his name, image, and likeness, and he could probably sue if he wasn't able to do that all of a sudden again after having that right. But you're right. I mean, and that's a good amount for those players, and I think if they can do that, I think that'd be great. Because what is it, 30,000?
30,000 is what he
30,000 minimum.
proposed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair for all of them in sports. They put in a lot of extra time. And even if doesn't make the school money, they still, they have the events, they put on the events. It fosters school spirit. It's things for students to come and do. A lot of those sports games that most people don't go and watch, students do. And that really kind of becomes part of the experience. So I definitely think that they all deserve it if they can do it. Problem
Becky?
is, who all can do it?
Sorry. I didn't. No, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'm kind of curious what she has to say about that.
And this will be a follow-on. I'll let you answer, Becky. But following up with what Immaculate says, are you okay with the potential that if they do institute something like this, we lose support for women's athletics because they simply can't afford to support that many? So we lose sports. Which would you rather have? More pay to a fewer number of women, or more spread out pay to a bunch of women?
I think really what it comes down to, and I mean, it comes down to a few things. Like, I'm a former athlete in college, so
Right.
it's a difficult aspect for me to speak on this, but it really comes down to two things. One, if you're removing those sports, what are the other sports gaining? And then two, if you remove those sports and those players, or if you keep them and then those women are making the same amount as the men, or you reduce it and they're making the same amount as the men, at what point do we sit back and we say, hey, look, these athletes are doing this. I think we need to make contracts a thing, and they cannot transfer. So, like, you're going to be there for 2 years. You're going to be there for 3 years.
So it's a service contract. It's like being a contract worker out in the world. You get the NIL money, but to do that, even if you're injured, you'll get the money, but you can't transfer for 2 or 3 or 4 years, right?
Correct. And somebody pointed this out to me, and a few athletes who have entered the portal are going to slowly find this out. And I hadn't known this, but somebody else had pointed it out. But even if you enter the portal, you're going to get an adult consequence for that, in that you have NIL responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yep.
And these are contracts. They're not, just simple things. So there's so much to it. At some
Welcome
point,
to the real world,
right? At some point, we have to say, look, they don't have what professional athletes have, which is I pay somebody to look out for me.
And that's a great point.
Hey, Becky, so I've got a question here. So for NIL, so for Penix, like that situation that you kind of laid out, say that you're Michael Penix, and that the University of Washington's paying you out $30,000 based on this out of the trust fund, the new trust fund. Do you believe that there will be like a separate opportunity for Penix to make money, like through another collective or an NIL program, or how can he make money and be, I guess, like with Title IX? Like how does he make really money on the side, like a significant amount of money based on his name, image, likeness at all, given Title IX?
The universities have to do the smart thing, and they have to keep the NIL collectives separate from the university. That is the only reason right now why it's even, like, I think, legal in some places.
That's right.
They'll still exist. It's just some of the money will dry up.
Yeah, but the problem you run into is, like, where will it dry up, right? What places will it dry up? It's not going to dry up in a major city. So the schools like in Los Angeles, Seattle, even like Columbus, Minneapolis, you know, or even like Maryland's outside DC, you have Rutgers outside New York, and in, you know, North Carolina, you know, you throw a rock, you're in a city. So
That's one angle on it, but like a Nebraska has a lot of their
Nebraska has theirs.
Their people go to all the other cities. So like even though they don't have like a major city where they're at, a lot of their donors and alumni and boosts and stuff are from big cities.
That's where I think it stops being a collective and it ends up being what professional athletes have, because professional athletes have sponsorships, but not every sponsorship is equal. So you can get a sponsorship, you know, the Nike guys wear Nike, the Adidas guys wear Adidas. Those are the typical, you know, everybody gets one of those. But not everybody gets what LeBron gets. Not everybody got what Michael Jordan got. And that's where it's going to have to go. Is NIL is no longer going to be a collective. It can't be in this case, because the University of Oregon lawsuit is going to try and tie the collective to the university because it's paying university students.
Yep.
NIL can't be a collective anymore. I think it just needs to be like lawyers or somebody who's just, you know, hey, look, this plumbing company, you know, like I'll just use an example out here in Seattle. There's a plumbing company out here that hires a lot of the Seahawks to do their commercials, specifically like Marshawn Lynch and Bobby Wagner. But it will be something like that where it's like, hey, we want to hire Michael Penix Jr. We're going to pay this much. Can he do some commercials for us?
This is
Car dealerships and
direct
all that.
from business to the player, like that contractual agreement without going through the collective to get the funding. So the collectives,
I think that's where it's going to head. And like I said, the issue with that is certain places have more opportunities than others. And you can see places like in a major city, like Los Angeles, for instance, the Bruins and the Trojans, there's too much money out there for anything, but it just takes one good-looking athlete on the women's side to suddenly be making that like quarterback kind of money. That's all it's going to take. So.
This is where I think a couple things are going to happen. First, I want to shout out Sergeant Pickles for $1.99. Go Dogs and a super chat. Thank you very much for that, Sergeant Pickles. Good to see you tonight. This is when I first read the article. There's two things that jumped into my head. The first one was this is a completely overreaction defense move by the NCAA. They know they're about to lose a $3 billion lawsuit here, a $500 million lawsuit there, and they're trying to get proactive before those things can be settled to protect themselves, to keep themselves in business. Why don't we just let the NCAA die? That's the question that I have out. What's the protective measure that the NCAA needs that we just can't live without at the university and athletic level?
Those lawsuits don't just name the NCAA. Most of them, they also name the Power Five. So
I know, but I'm talking about. I'm not saying they're the only ones getting sued. I'm saying they're a business that, for all intents and purposes, could go away, and we're not going to miss them.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that they do that people don't realize. They do a lot of the grunt work, busy work for just like, you know, applications and certifications and just a whole lot of, you know, just volume of work. And I don't think that these conferences really want to take all that on themselves. That's just kind of a headache. But there's a lot that the NCAA does that I think probably should be taken away from them. And I think that's what you're seeing. And that's the part that most people see. So that's why I think we could do away with the NCAA, because we want to take all this away from them. It's like, well, we could just take that away from them and let them just keep doing all the stuff that we actually don't want to do. Because I don't think any conference wants to get stuck into that. NCAA is not bad with that, with their, you know, requirements and eligibilities and applications and just going through the mass amount of work.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Well, I had a question for Becky too after that. I don't know if anyone was jumping in on that one or not.
Well, I was just gonna say with the lawsuits, like in regards, I think it was what Dartmouth and Stanford who are looking
boys
to
basketball.
unionize.
Yep.
Yeah, the unionization stuff. Like, if you broke away from the NCAA, what point do we consider it more of a business?
Yeah.
I don't think you have to get rid of the tax-free, for instance, or the federal subsidized stuff. I don't think that has to be tied to the NCAA. I think that's something that you could come
No,
up
no,
with
I think the
a different
universities are
organization
still,
that could administer that.
yeah, the universities are still essentially considered charities. But at what point do we say you're doing what? Like, the courts would have to ask. And I think if I'm like, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just saying, if I'm still an athlete and I'm getting paid, I'm actually going to ask the question, like, wait, how much money are you guys doing this for? And why can't I get paid a fair share of that money? Because you're not really doing it for athletics anymore. You're doing it to make money.
Right. It's
You're
not
not doing it to
it's
not
not a
just to boost.
non-profit. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
you're
right.
not doing it just to boost your enrollment at your university. Like that was
Right.
the original plan for athletics, 100 years ago. That was
Yes.
the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Get our name out there, get more diverse students from around the country, create a better student body, create a smarter student body. You're not doing that anymore. What are you doing
Right.
it for?
A couple quick comments here. Kyle Visser says we need the NCAA to extort 90% of the March Madness revenue. That's true. I think that's
To knock
absolutely
down the
spot on.
basketball.
And Sergeant Pickles says they really do need a completely separate football and basketball entity and run that like a proper league. We are already there. And I'm leaning more towards something like that happening and getting it away, not taking away from the universities, but taking it away from the sports that don't make any money. But
Yeah, I mean,
I think this could all lead to what Moen's been saying all along. Like everything that we talk about, it just makes this more and more complicated. I think that this might just shift, like he says, to the conferences instead of having the individual schools do it. I think the compromise will be that the conferences do it. This just seems to be getting more and more complicated to try to figure out like the differences between the schools. If the conference does it, then it kind of holds everyone on the same line.
it's like we're playing professional games with colleges, guys. It's like what we're talking about. Like this is semi-pro sports. We're talking with men's basketball and college
Pretty
football,
much.
and like they're under the university umbrella. There's no way to get it. I mean, we love our universities, right? Washington, Utah, and everything else. There's no way to get around that. So this is always going to be a thorny challenge and everything. And even if you broke away, since it's under the university umbrella, I think it's still, your sports and everything. I think Title IX implications and everything would still come into play no matter what. So I'm not really sure there's a great way to do this necessarily. I think that you
Right.
need the NCAA. I don't know.
People don't. That's not a popular thing to say or think, but there's also a lot of what they do is just not known. It's just a lot of work.
I think it's the corruption people are tired about.
Right,
Go ahead and
absolutely.
let them do all
100%.
the admin stuff they want. You're right.
Yeah.
The conferences and schools don't want to administer all that
No.
stuff. But it's turned into a corrupt organization, the NCAA is. So either shut it down or reform it, but something needs to change.
Kind of why I think full autonomy is the way they go with Division I. Let the autonomous conferences run the
I think
all,
that's right.
all the rules that they want to do with.
Yeah.
But I don't think they actually want to leave the NCAA.
What I think is going to be the net result of this, I think that this measure, this proposal, will probably pass in one way, shape, or form. It will get the pressure of the lawsuits off the back, right? That's the whole
Yes.
purpose of it. I think that schools will fund the $30,000 per athlete minimum, or somewhere around there, maybe a little bit more, but they're not going to go all in and build like a massive war chest like they could. And I think that they're still going to do dark collective type of work, like Becky already mentioned it and stuff. Like, it won't be under the collective name, but they're going to basically be doing like they are now and getting players paid on the side and pay for play and everything on the side. So I think that they're both going to coexist. It's just going to get more convoluted. That's how I see it happening.
Moen or Immaculate, anything else you want to bring about that? Immaculate, you had another question, right?
Yeah, if Moen had anything to go on to that,
I just want to hashtag Moen was right. Conference employees.
I just wanted to say that because I still think that you might be right on that, and just people are looking at this proposal and are kind of enraptured by it because it's so kind of out of left field. But I think it's too much, too complicated. All these schools doing this on their own. I don't think they want that headache. I think the conference doesn't come in and say, well, we could do it for you. And then, then their bureaucracy grows. But my question for Becky is actually one of the things I saw about that lawsuit, and as a former athlete, you could maybe attest to this and talk about this, is that the girls were saying the lack of investment in the infrastructure and in the facilities for them is causing them to have less NIL opportunities. Because when you look at the pictures of like where some of them are playing, like the sand volleyball courts and whatnot, it's just really decrepit and bad. Whereas then you go into some of the male sports and, they got these brand new locker rooms that have places literally to go to do your social media work and everything. I think that has the most bite, and that's what's going to cost the schools the most, because they're going to have to invest in that. What do you think? Do you think that maybe is the best angle of it all, is the lack of investment in those sports by those schools is costing those kids their NIL opportunities?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean,
you were there, you've seen this, so
yeah. I mean, look, if anybody wants to know, go look at the photos from the, there was the women's tournament from a couple of years ago. Like their weight room was horrendous. What they were fed was bad. That was women's basketball. Like it was bad. Like I can't remember. I think it was 2021. It was really, really bad. It was embarrassing. And then when you see the men's locker rooms and stuff for like certain sports. It's not every single sport. It is only a few sports. But no, the volleyball stuff, beach volleyball, sand volleyball they're horrible. If anybody, I do
look like a bad park.
I do ask people to go Google it, because you'll be astonished at what they look like.
And it's Oregon.
And it's Oregon, where you're
like it's supposed to be like Olympic Central, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Phil Knight drops $200 million to build an arena, put his kid's name on it, and okay, cool. That's for basketball, but he didn't build it for the women's basketball team. He built it for the men's team. The renovations to Autzen, those weren't done for women's sports. Those were done specifically for the football team. The track and field is world class, but that wasn't done for the women or the men. Really, that was done because they're the track institution in America, but it was also, they wanted to have a world class facility to draw participants for the Olympic trials. They're not doing any of these women's sport. They're not doing any of that stuff for women's sports. The facilities are horrendous. Some of these facilities for even like gymnastics are bad. They're sharing basically multi-purpose rooms with wrestling teams and other sports. So like the gymnastics team may have all their stuff in there, but they'll just push it out of the way so a baseball team can practice.
And a lot of NIL is social media, like participation. You can't really show off if you're if you're in a bad place and your competition is in like a beautiful place.
Let's be realistic here. They're not going to put that on TV.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. Nobody wants to put that on TV. It looks horrible. It's bad. Anybody who's been to the University of Washington, the beach volleyball court is right outside the athletic building. I mean, and they let anybody and everybody use it. It's not an off limits thing. It's not, I can't walk into the football stadium and just, with like 10 of my buddies and throw together a scrimmage.
That doesn't work at any of those schools. I don't think so.
But I can go to the tennis courts, and I can go to the beach volleyball, and I can go to the soccer. I can do all of that there.
Where that changes is when there's enough money to build the indoor facilities for those sports, Becky, and they will come once you start getting that Big Ten money.
Well,
you're gonna see those buildings being built.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Like the University of Washington has its indoor facility. The softball team does use it, but they will get kicked out by the football team,
of course,
when spring practices start, or even just for workouts.
Right.
But it's just little things like that if they can't, they have to improve the facilities. If you're not on TV, right, if you're not on TV, they're not going to know who you are because you're not being talked about. You can't sell the product. I might as well just give it to just a random person on the street and say, hey, can you sell my product? I'll give you, $100,000. You wouldn't do that. And that's what these athletes look like.
Ute needs to take off. He's at the top of the hour. Ute, what do you want to tell everybody about you and what they should remember overnight?
They should remember that Michigan's a cheater. Number one, that Florida State got screwed. And it makes no sense. The transfer portal's crazy. Collectives are flush with cash, spending buku dollars. Don't really know. It doesn't look like college football, but it is. It's pretty fun still. Just a lot of good stuff, though. And we haven't even gotten to the ACC yet. And all the mess and all the fallout from Florida State getting left out of the playoff and what that's going to trigger here coming up, over the next couple months and all the momentum that's going with the fracturing of the ACC. And so it's exciting times to be a college football fan. It's exciting times to be a Big 12 fan, to be a Big 10 fan like you all and everything. So, as always, go Utes.
You have a lot of people freaking out with their OCD because of your shells, Ute. Sergeant Pickles says he's gonna.
Is that better? Are you guys? Is that better for you guys?
He's gonna send.
That's much better.
I think your
Did that ruin your show, Moen, right there?
I think your camera had a little bit of walleye going on. That's all that was happening.
That's pretty funny.
Man,
I
my
think it's
bad.
funny
I'll
that
get that
he
fixed
was here.
next time.
It's all good.
Okay.
All
guys,
right,
take
you
care.
are you going to be here tomorrow for Bob Thompson? Or
I won't
no?
be able to make it tomorrow.
Okay.
Go, Bob.
All right.
Go, Bob.
Very good.
Peace. Okay. See ya.
Have a nice
Right,
night.
you-
Bye bye. All right. Well, we have talked for what? An hour and a half, guys. Becky, why don't you tell everybody where to find you and what you do and why you're important, your opinions matter.
Oh, so I'm Becky Go Huskies on X/Twitter. I'm at Becca Rebecca. Usually lately I've just been trolling Duck fans because it's easy. No, I live in Seattle. I'm a UW grad. Born and raised in Seattle, though. Like I said, I was a D1 athlete. I played at Old Dominion University for 1 year before I got injured and retired and transferred to University of Washington. But yeah, I just hang out I'm on there usually. And like I said, I'll give like an opinion. It's usually just to draw like some chatter. Feel free to follow or say hi. I'm not mean or anything. So at least I try not to be.
I can attest that you are not mean. Cleveland Rocks, one of our paying members, has a final note for you, Becky. He says, very true statements. I coached high school basketball for years, and the female players were always treated as second-class citizens. So it is still a serious problem, even with Title IX. I'm not sure that ever changes. Do you?
No, it's never going to change unless women's sports starts to garner the money that men's sports can produce.
I think they need to push women's volleyball.
I think women's volleyball and women's basketball.
I think women's soccer is huge.
Women's
soccer is too, but women's volleyball
Yeah.
doesn't have like a male counterpart for people who want to do the comparison to compare it to. Whereas, I mean, I've been in family with women's volleyball players and at college and everything, and to me, after seeing it live, that shit's for real.
Yeah, no, women's volleyball player here.
I do
go.
not want to be on a court where a women's volleyball player is spiking at me. No thanks. I've seen it. I've seen the marks. It's for real. They get hurt.
It is by far for real.
Oh,
I love
you
it.
take a facial and you're feeling it for a while.
Yeah, like you're breaking noses and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like-
it's not pretty. Like those girls, many of them are pretty, but if they get hit in the face by that, it's not going to be a pretty sight.
All right, Becky, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, you guys. Have a
Talk
good
to you
night.
out. Thanks for showing
Appreciate
up,
it.
and we'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, man, busy night, guys.
Yeah.
Final comment here from Kyle Visser. He says, Bomber, will Bob Thompson pull, I think that's a P, pull back the curtain tomorrow? He's always been straightforward with us. We always ask him questions that are off mark. Other people don't take the time to explore And we do that with him. So if you have a question that you think is really important, come tomorrow night and or even send it to us on Twitter early or something like that. And if it's something that we think that will expose whatever you're trying to find out, please send it, and we'll see if it is that good. I'll definitely use it. You guys want to add anything to that?
I can't wait to talk to Bob about these rising viewership numbers that we were just talking about. I want to see what he has to say about that from his perspective as being, at the top of those organizations. How big of a deal is this? How much could this affect the money? Like, you get someone like that talking about it, that's priceless. Totally
agree. Moen, what do you think?
I agree with Don in Kansas. We need roller derby. At a collegiate level.
I'm on board.
I'm on board for that.
I'll sign that petition.
Yep. I miss roller derby. When I was a kid, it was on television. Can you believe that? They used to broadcast roller derby.
Oh, it was great.
On Saturday afternoons. Yeah, that and local wrestling, regional wrestling. Anyway. All right. Any Immaculate, I'll let you go first. Anything you want to leave everybody with?
I think we got ourselves a busy month. We're pretty much in it with everyone. I know we come on and we say a lot of opinions and a lot of things, but right now with how much is going on, I think I'm sitting here like everyone else going, I got no clue. And we can just kind of sit here and watch it all unfold and try to make some sense of it together. So looking forward to this month in that way.
Moen?
In regards to Florida State,
this is bullshit.
Perfect.
How long did it take you to find that drop?
That one was easy. That is Mr. Show.
Okay.
David Cross.
I love it. That's fantastic. Let's see. I don't really have anything to leave you with except to say we appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Consider being a paying member and really support us in more ways than one. And then follow us all on Twitter. You guys can see all our names there on Twitter. Check us out and turn on your notifications on Twitter and on YouTube. Really quick, let me get through a couple of my branding things here. In the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you see a QR code. That one is for BYU mini football helmets. They've been somebody that has sent me some gear. The helmets behind me that are BYU, a couple of them they sent me. And for Christmas is coming up, they're great gifts. I would encourage you guys to go out and hit those things up. Another one is, let me bring the next one up, which is the NIL Collective one for Coug Connect. If you're a BYU fan and you want to support BYU and you want to be BYU big time, the best way to do that is to give your money to an NIL. The one I support is Coug Connect. You can sign up for $10 a month and you get behind the scenes information and inside knowledge. And I can attest to you, the first update I ever saw from them was back behind the curtain type stuff that wasn't publicly available for, in some cases, weeks. So I'd encourage everybody to do that. So scan that QR code. I've got a couple of new advertisers that are going to be coming on. As soon as I get their information inputted, I'll run through those as we get through the Christmas season. But other than that, unless you guys have anything else, I think we'll sign out.
I think we're good for today.
All right. Incredible. Blaze Barstow, our latest member. Thanks for being here, Blaze. Really, really appreciate it. Everybody else, have a great night. Stay out of trouble. And we'll see you tomorrow night with Bob Thompson. Peace.